Thank you, Gustavo. Everybody, grateful for the opportunity to be here and check in and also check up on our progress and what we've been promoting and drive home a message fundamentally about accountability and delivering results with this budget trailer bill that I will sign in a moment. Janelle, thank you for your stewardship of this project. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks for bringing us here together. Thank you for your passion. Not only for this project, but more importantly for the community. And I appreciate you leading with our namesake, someone, I think it was 1911, when she became the first, Miss Lee became the first Chinese American to register to vote. And that's something we can't take for granted anymore. Every day there's a new headline that reminds us how precious that fundamental right is and how we have to continue to fight for it. So it seems so appropriate to be here today in her spirit at this precious moment. Sharon, you reminded me, Assemblywoman, a little bit of the moment we shared on, as you say, the green floor, the carpet, and the Assembly, a speech that I took the liberty to give to the legislature, a State of the State speech that was a single subject speech, which I assure you was not the case in any prior state of the state. But our state of mind was clearly fixed on the ongoing frustration, the exhaustion almost, of the issue of homelessness and housing in the state, and the connection, the affordability issue, before it was coined with the consciousness that it is today. The issue that defines more issues in more ways on more days, the cost of living, the issue of housing in this state, a state that frankly had been dumb as we wanted to be for decades and decades. We designed a system, a machine over the course of the last half century to make it more difficult to build. It was intentionally designed. It wasn't by chance. It wasn't by happenstance. It was designed not to build. And that required us not just to think differently and argue for different results, but to rebuild the machine. And that's what we've committed to do over the course of the last number of years. And it's taken a number of years to build the political will, the political capital, to build the partnerships, the coalitions. They're stubborn coalitions here. A lot of folks didn't want to see change. Local governments did not, I assure you, at the time, want to see change. So much so that one of the first acts as governor was to sue one of those local cities. Check my status at City Hall down there in Huntington Beach. I'm not, there's not enough security. Can walk down those halls. We sued Huntington Beach. Been in litigation for years and years and years. They thought we'd go away. We didn't. 46 other states were put on notice. Cities were put on notice. We convened work groups north and south, and we began to work on holding folks accountable to the housing elements, to what we refer to in the vernacular of the state, the RHNA goals. And we decided it was time to have some stretch goals. We went from 1.2 million legally required housing units to be constructed in the state of California in what we refer to as the fifth cycle of the RHNA goals, and we more than doubled it to 2.5 million in the last cycle. We have seen over the course of the last few years progress not only made in terms of achieving those goals, but we've seen those goals extend to now over 3.5 million housing units where zoning has been committed to and progress has been advanced in order to blow past that legally binding 2031 goal of 2.5 million new housing starts. That's progress. We continue to make progress as it relates to the creation of a housing accountability unit, so it wasn't ad hoc. And the purpose of the housing accountability unit was to provide not just sticks but carrots, to provide support, technical assistance to help cities and counties all across the state of California achieve those audacious goals. We also significantly increased our tax credit program. In fact, we're advancing another $500 million in this trailer bill to do just that. It was in the modest single digits when we started. So accountability, support, promoting progress, but also promoting fundamental reforms and working with the legislature and two remarkable leaders behind me. And Jesse, Senator, I'll get to you in a moment. we started to chip away. ADUs was a big deal. Working on single-family zoning, SB 9 and 10, big deals. 2011 was a big deal, but nothing more significant and consequential. After nibbling around the edges, 32 CEQA reform bills that I was proud to promote, proud to sign, the Holy Grail was out there. The thing that Jerry Brown once referred to as the Lord's work. That struggled to even get a committee hearing, let alone out of a committee or a floor vote. And we were able to achieve that together rather audaciously. I know it wasn't the way you always want it. Not in a budget, certainly, but we got it done in the budget. And we did the most consequential housing reforms on infill and SEEK reform in California's history last year. And what was remarkable about that, it's the old adage, once the mind is stretched, it never goes back to its original form. After all the friction, the frustration around that, you all came back, the legislature came back this year saying, what more can we do? Because the support you received from that was off the charts. People recognizing we need to do more and better. We need to produce visible, in the spirit of the senator's remark, visible results. They want to see more progress, more hard hats. They want to see more projects like this built, not more press conferences. And so that led to a series of reforms that we're announcing and landing here today. And let me quickly sum them up and sign this. As Gustavo rightfully said, the issue of financing in the labyrinth, the jungle gym, not even a ladder of sorts that you have to navigate to get financing. I think, you were talking about stitching together 8 different funding sources just from the state of California.
Applied 20 times.
And we applied 20 times, she continues to remind me, for those funds. Now we will be advancing. We have technically went in effect a couple days ago, as Gustavo reminded me. It's in effect. This codifies it and allows the funding to flow to the agency that's now been established, that will allow us to establish this one-stop shop to reduce the friction, the time, the duplication, the repetition, the bureaucracy as it relates to accessing those funds. What does that mean? You reduce bureaucracy, you increase access and transparency. That drives down costs, drives down the time to a project. And we estimate with that reform and the reforms that I'll get to in a moment on impact fees, that we can reduce the cost per unit by $60,000 to $70,000. And Governor has not been able to say that in years and years in this state. That's progress. And that impact fee is an important part. I saw this firsthand. I remember I was a mayor. As Jesse reminded us, he was as well. Once a mayor, always a mayor. And, I saw, dare I say, I may have even participated in a little bit of the abuse in that respect. And I use that word intentionally because it started to get a little abusive, the impact fees. Become candidly usurious. In some ways, it's outrageous. And for too long, we've been complicit. We've been passive. We've been indulgent. Impact fees tend to be solving a lot of other problems, but it's not solving this problem. It's not solving the issue that we claim is a crisis, but we're not acting as if it is because we're not resolving it. And so you've got some cities and counties, these impact fees are comical. They're outrageous. It makes it quite literally impossible to develop an affordable unit. It's BS. It's just a brand. I don't care if it's a nonprofit attached, it's BS. Because we're stacking so many fees to solve so many other problems. So we try to figure out what we can do at the state level. We don't run local planning commissions, though we want to run accountability and focus on that. And so we came up with a creative strategy. We took a few at-bats on this the last few years. We couldn't figure it out. This year we finally figured it out. And that was to attach, it seems a little obvious in hindsight, but all the state-funded programs. If you want state funding, you want $1, you want $200, you want $200 million, no local impact fees then. Drive down the cost. And if you do that, then we're also going to allow those dollars that you didn't attach as a fee to benefit your scoring at the state level and provide that as an offset to your quote-unquote local match. And all of a sudden, when we started to knit this together, braid it together, folks, started to come together, including the leaders behind me in the legislature that drove this reform. So this is the first time in decades, first time in my knowledge period, we've done anything on impact fees. So we're streamlining bureaucracy, reorganizing a construct around a simple one-stop application around financing, focusing on real accountability at the local level, driving accountability at the state level with fundamental land use reforms and time to develop reforms as it relates to CEQA. We're organizing in a construct more support, not just more punitive actions, and we're more resolved than ever to reach our goals. And here I'll conclude, and this is important, and this may actually make some sense, because talking about RENA goals and 8-year, 6 cycles makes no sense to anybody. But this might. 682,000 units have been constructed since 2019. 59% more residential construction than when we started. 59%. We've reduced the time to entitlement and permitting from 160 days to 68 days. That's a 57% reduction. 59% increase in the number of residential construction units and a 57% decline in the time to get these projects at the state level entitled. I'm proud of that. And let me give you another proof point. In the last 30 years, we've been struggling on multifamily. In the last 5 years, we've produced more multifamily than we have in the last 30 years. So we're finally seeing progress. We're coming out the other side of this flywheel, and I'm proud of that. And I'll end on this, including, as Jesse said, on homelessness. And there's not been a governor that can claim this, but it's only because of the work that Barbara's been doing, Mayor Lee, and Jesse with his old hat, his former mayor in Berkeley, and mayors across the region in the Bay and across the state of California. But for the first time in almost 2 decades, California has seen a reduction in unsheltered homelessness. Visible reduction. Still a lot of progress, close to double digits, 9.5%. Few states, by the way, just 3 states can lay claim to any kind of reduction like that in the United States. You're seeing increases all across the country, double-digit increases in unsheltered homelessness. Finally, in California, we're seeing progress because we've driven the same mindset of accountability on encampments. As it relates to housing, we've also incorporated homeless accountability units. We're driving reforms, sticks and carrots, as it relates to Prop 1 and the $6.38 billion bond that we put out for mental health, the work we've done on encampment resolution grants, the work we've done on Home Key, which was referenced a moment ago in our tour. We're finally starting to see, again, another flywheel, and finally starting to see results and progress. Forgive the long-windedness, but it's what happens when you're termed out. Because we had a theory for the case, and we executed. And none of this, I assure you, was easy. I've said it many times, change has its enemies. Every single one of these things didn't happen before for a good reason. Politics did not line up with the policy. And so I just want to express my gratitude for all of you that helped create those conditions where we were able to move the needle and make real this progress. And with that, I have a pen. Why don't you guys come around? Why don't you all come around? Doug, even you. Doug is my old San Francisco housing director. He only wishes he could be director again with these reforms. There you go. And we'll do a quick photo. And get this done.
We get one photo of her. Okay. Genevieve, you know her budget.
Yeah. Oh, Genevieve. Hey, Genevieve. All right. We're all here, every one of us, to answer your questions.
Governor, you mentioned the state of the state address another aspect of housing that you noted Wall Street or corporations buying up single-family homes here in the state and wants to do something about that. We were in line with the president on that as well. Any movement on that? There was a state bill by Senator Gurley that has been working on for years, but that died in committee. Some updates on that
Yeah, there's been a lot of us are promoting that. The good news is, remarkably, the president may not be familiar because he didn't take the time to sign a bill, that what we were promoting, and by the way, take a look at that housing bill that was done federally, looks a lot like what we've been doing here in the state of California. Their reforms to NEPA, our reforms to CEQA, their focus on excess federal lands. We did that through an executive order the first year I got here. All those Caltrans sites and the development projects we put in those places, including on the corporate housing. And in so many ways, a model bill. And I applaud the bipartisan nature of that bill and the legislative leaders in Congress for advancing it. In so many ways, it neuters the need, not completely, but substantially, for the state of California to move forward. That said, there are a number of bills and discussions and amendments that are in play as we assess exactly, waiting to see if that actually got signed or the midnight deadline passed, to assess what it means and what it doesn't mean in relationship to California's unique conditions. So we'll assess that further, but substantial progress was legitimately made through the housing bill that was advanced federally.
Governor, even with the progress that you cited, California still ranks as one of the most expensive states for housing, especially with some of the bureaucratic red tape that gets in the way. What's your message to Californians who are struggling with this issue? How long might it be until we start to see?
Well, I hope they'll take a look at this press conference in the last 20, and they'll hear exactly what we're doing substantively on that topic. We're getting rid of the red tape, substantively. That's an old talking point now, because we have proof points that suggest differently. 59% increase in housing construction, 57% decrease in the time to getting permits. That's real. That's the receipt on the substance. 3.5 million units now planned and in the pipeline, doubling of the legal mandate under the housing element and the RENA goals. A housing accountability unit driving reforms and compelling localism. A focus now on YIMBYism, not NIMBYism. Nation-leading reforms to substantively address that issue. And yes, it is the issue, as I open up the press conference, that defines more things, as I suggested, in more ways, on more days, about the struggles of more Californians and Americans. Cost of housing. And it's not complicated. It's supply-demand. It's Econ 101. We need to build more damn housing, and we need to lower the cost of construction.
Counties have been critical of the position of this bill that limit their ability to bring in revenue from these impact fees. And I guess I'm wondering, what's your response to that criticism that this makes it so that we're less likely to spearhead affordable housing projects?
Well, as a former county mayor, talking to the wrong guy. I know a thing or two about what I speak. They can choose not to. But don't try to seek more access to state funds. Or you can lower the cost of construction and deliver for your communities, for your counties. We did this, I think, very strategically, thoughtfully, and we needed together with not just the punitive side, the stick, but real incentives that are laid out in this legislation. By the way, I didn't even include the $900 million on the HAP 7 that's coming out. I didn't even include some of the other resources that we put in this budget. So we're providing an abundance of support that has never existed for counties for housing construction. What we're asking for is accountability and transparency on usurious fees that frankly have been abused, not in every case, but in many counties all across the state. While I'm sensitive to that critique, I've been hearing it for years and years and years, and I feel like we've struck the right balance with this legislation. Anybody else?
Agree measures on the ballot in 2026, addressing housing, Hertzberg, Novasa, Homes Bond, the affordable housing bond, and CEQA. Do you think that the state has done enough for voters to look at all that money, to look at those three and say yes on all of these?
Yeah, well, I'll get to the, I'm going to go through what I do this time every other year, and that's assess the merits, demerits of all the bills. But certainly I'll speak to the one that we can all speak to with some intimate familiarities. We all worked on it together, which was the state housing bond, which absolutely the voters should support. That was vetted in the mindset that we brought to this legislative effort here today, which is a mindset of accountability and transparency about delivering results, about time to delivery, and about lowering costs. And so all of those were fed through that prism, and I'm very, very pleased with the work that was done to get that bill, or rather to get that bond on the ballot. As it relates to the other bills, I'll be putting out a little bit more in terms of my thinking on that over the course of the next few weeks, but I'm very, very proud of the work, including, by the way, the money that's in that housing bond for veterans, which is incredibly important. Anybody else?
How might this work in concert with the federal legislation? I know you said there's a lot of overlap.
That's great. Hey, rare to, a couple of good things are actually happening in Washington, D.C. It's hard for me to, forgive me, I want to say it again just because I want to hear it myself. A couple of good things have actually happened in Washington, D.C. And this was one. I don't want to overstate it, but it's a pretty good damn bill. And I actually stress tested it a number of times, and I wasn't joking when I said, looks a lot like California, which may have been one of the reasons Trump didn't sign it. But I thought there was a lot of good thinking and a lot of smart work that was done on it. Federal government, states have limited roles and responsibility when it comes to these things. Localism's determinative on all this. Housing and homelessness, it's a bottom-up construct. So it's really about getting rid of those regulatory thickets. It's really about creating flexibility and doing what you can to support localism. And I think what they did, what we've done, is going to feed very nicely into what the counties and cities will be doing all across this nation and subsequently all across the state of California. Well, thank you all very much for being out here. And again, Cahill, thank you.